Okay. So our presenter tonight is Lori Rotterman from the Montgomery County Chapter of the Ohio Genealogical Society, and she is their corresponding secretary and education chair. And if I remember correctly, you're also heading up their cemetery book project. So yes. That's great. And Lori is also a librarian at the Dayton Metro Library, where she works in the special collections. So she is going to talk about those resources from those organizations. So thank you very much, Lori, for doing this, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks. So I put together let me see if I can get to the right screen. I put together a short PowerPoint as well as the handouts that Brian already sent you. But mostly I'm going to be talking rather than actually sharing things on screen. So I had to get both of my hats on this first screen with their official titles and logos and everything, so that I'm not accused of doing anything off the books. And so that's where we're starting there. And then this next screen, oops. And if you want, Brian, I can also send this to you to share with the people who are here tonight, because there are a few links in it that they might appreciate being able to click on instead of having to write things down and type them out. Or you could type them into the chat if you want as we go.
Sure, I can actually do both of those things.
Okay, so I've put both of my email addresses on here. The Gmail address is the one that I use for my entire life, but also specifically for the Genealogy Society. I get approximately, between all my various hats that I wear and all the spam junk mails you get, I get approximately 1,000 emails a month at that address. But most of them are irrelevant to things that I really care about. And then the second one that I've listed there is my email address at the Dayton Metro Library. So if you have the library specific questions or resources that you want to access, you could reach out to me through that one rather than the Gmail. And it might make it a little easier. So I'm going to start off with kind of an overview of the Genealogy Society. I have included the link to the Genealogy Society's website. Most of the website is available to the public to browse around on. There are some things, however, that are behind a member wall that only people who are paid members of the society have access to some of those resources. Things like a roster of all of the current members with their addresses and phone numbers and that kind of thing that we wouldn't want shared out there with the general public. But we're also going to start putting links to handouts from some of our different presentations and stuff on the member side of the website so that people have access to them in the future. So our mission is to attract, welcome, inspire, educate, and support a diverse community of family historians and to preserve records for the benefit of future generations. And our vision is to become a prominent and diverse community of family historians based in Montgomery County. Our chapter was formed in 1974. And over the years, membership has waned up and down, and especially over the last 10 years or so, it seems like every year we have a few fewer members. I think that's partly due to the fact that our membership is aging, and also when the economy hits financial troubles, some people decide that a membership to something like this is something they can afford to drop to save a little bit of money. And then also I have been told that younger people don't necessarily feel the need to join an organization. If they want to do genealogy, they're just going to go on Ancestry themselves and do it. And what do they need to bother with an organization for? So I'll talk about some of the reasons why being in part of an organization might be a worthwhile thing to do. So normally, we meet once a month at the Dayton Metro Library, the second Saturday of each month. There's a half-hour social period and refreshments before the meeting. Then there's a short business meeting, and then a guest speaker of some sort, and time for questions and discussion and so forth after the presentation. And those meetings are held at the main branch of the Dayton Metro Library in downtown Dayton. We also have a special interest group that is the DNA interest group, or DIG, and they meet on the fourth Monday of each month, with the exception of November and December, which are holidays, so they don't bother meeting then. Plus, nobody likes to get out in bad weather. However, during the COVID crisis, all of the meetings for both the general membership and the DIG group are all being held virtually instead. And then typically in a normal year, we would also have a picnic in June, an all-day seminar in October, and in December, we have a holiday party where everybody brings a dish that we all share, and people also bring in examples of good resources that they found or a project that they've been working on that they share with the group in kind of a show and tell situation. So these are the upcoming meetings that are scheduled, both for the regular monthly meeting and the DNA group. The DNA topics have not been decided yet for those 3 upcoming meetings. And then there won't be a meeting in November and December for them, as I indicated. And because we can't do the seminar this year, we decided to just have a regular monthly meeting in October as well. So the 3 speakers and topics that we're going to be having for September, October, and November are listed there. And we haven't quite figured out how we're going to do the holiday party. It's kind of tough to do a carry-in when you're all sitting in your own kitchen. So we may just have a regular meeting. We may just have a show and tell period and kind of lose some of the social aspects of it. Membership in the society, we offer several different levels of membership. Our membership year is a calendar year, and joining and becoming a member means you get the monthly newsletter, a copy of the member roster, access to the members only area of the website, and the ability to join one of the Lineage Societies if you qualify for them. We have 2 different categories of membership. One is the basic membership, which includes just a PDF version of the monthly newsletter that you can get through the website. And then there are 3 different levels of payment in that category, which is an individual membership, a family, which would be typically be a couple, although there have been a few where it was a mother and daughter who lived together or that kind of thing. And then a sustaining membership where the additional money is considered a donation. We also then do offer a regular mail membership, which means that the newsletter actually gets sent by the US mail in a paper copy. You still have access to the PDF and all the other things, but some people prefer to get it in actual paper. But in order to cover the cost of the paper and the printing and the postage and everything else, we have to charge more for that version. So those prices are listed there as well. And I included the link to the page of the website where you can join if you are interested in doing that. You can either join online and pay with credit card or PayPal right on the website, or you can print off the form from the website and then mail it in with a check if you prefer not to use a credit card. We do allow guests to attend any of our meetings, so you don't have to be a member to come to a meeting. However, because of the nature of these virtual meetings, we send a link to the meeting to our membership. So if anyone is interested in attending a meeting who is not a member, they need to get in touch with us so we can add their name to the list of people that we send the link to, or they wouldn't be able to participate in that. I mentioned Lineage Societies. Many organizations have such groups that honor early pioneers in the area, or other examples of lineage societies that you might be more familiar with are the DAR, which means you're descended from someone who was in the American Revolution, or the Mayflower Descendants, which means you're descended from someone who came over on the Mayflower. So the lineage societies that our organization offers are, the first one is called First Families, and that's anyone who settled in Montgomery County before the end of 1830 is eligible to join that society. They have to fill out an application form with proof of their descent from that person and pay an application fee. And then the second society that was added, I think we have a few more than 100 members of First Families at this point. And some of those people have proved descent from one ancestor, some have proved descent from a dozen different people who were all here in those early days. And some of them are local residents here, some of them are people who live elsewhere in the country, but some of their ancestors passed through Montgomery County in the early pioneer days. So they have joined the society and joined the First Families because of that. And then we also set up a second organization called Settlers and Builders, and that covers people who settled here between 1831 and 1860. And again, it's the same kind of application process that you go through for either one of those groups. If you have ancestors that fall into both of those groups, you would have to pay the $15 application fee twice to be able to be inducted into both of those groups. Another service that our society offers is we don't provide individual research assistance as a society, but we do have local researchers who are willing to do research for people for hire. And so the list of researchers is also available on the website, and I've included that link as well. And if you want to hire someone to do research for you, we're not vouching for their accuracy or skill. We're just telling you, these are people that are out there. It's up to you to kind of vet them and decide who you feel comfortable working with and who you feel comfortable with what fees they're going to charge and that kind of thing. So a few other things that the chapter does, in addition to, I guess I have to stop that and go back. I just wanted to switch from one tab to another, but it wouldn't let me do it without, there we go. We also, and many societies do this, publish books of various kinds of information about the county. So some of the things that we have done are we've transcribed or indexed some of the very early books about the settlers of the county. So this is a list of the publications that we have available for sale. So this first two items are, there was a book called Pioneers, and this is an index to that book, which you can either get in paper form or on a CD-ROM. We've also got a copy of the first Dayton City Directory, which was in 1850. There's an index to a book that was written very early on and did not have an index of its own. But then our main focus, well, and we also, if we scroll on down, we have some of these 5-generation charts are some of the early members who might have actually joined the First Families and that kind of thing and published their, or shared their genealogy charts with the society, and we published them in books. later on, we decided that because there are living people listed on those charts, that that's probably not the wisest thing to do, is to put those kind of publications out there in the world. These were published back in 1985, so most of the people who were alive then and on those charts are no longer still living. But we're not continuing to publish those kind of books. We also have some books where we transcribed records from some of the early German churches that were out in the countryside, Farmersville and New Lebanon and places like that. There was a book that was published that was called Enumeration 96, which was a joint effort of our group and a couple of other genealogy societies and Wright State and the Montgomery County Archives, with that organization that Tina is with, who will be speaking at next month's meeting. And basically, volunteers went through all of the various records that are at the different archives and tried to identify people who were here before 1820 who were mentioned in any of those court records. So, and then they've been put together in this index. So you might look up a name and you might see that this person was a witness on somebody's will. You might see that they had a listing in the book of stray animals that were found. You might see their own deeds or wills listed, just a variety of things, so that people who are looking for those very early people have some idea where to go and what to look for. And an early marriage book we've also published. But the bulk of our publications are the cemetery books. And for those, we go out to, we do one township at a time, and we go out to every cemetery in that township, whether it's still in existence or defunct, and getting permission from the landowner, obviously, on the defunct ones. We go out and read the tombstones of every grave that's there. If there are records available at a church office or a township office or other places that might also list people who were buried there but did not have a tombstone, we also access that information. And then we publish them in these books, which we make available for sale. Some townships are large enough that they get several books of their, just for one township. Like here, volume 4 has 4 books, it looks like, A, B, C, and D. And that's still an ongoing project. We still have about 5 or 6 townships to go in the county to complete the project. So it's still something that's an ongoing thing where we have people going out and tramping up and down the rows, writing down what they find on the tombstones. So, and like I said, this was an order form. If you were interested in buying any of these books, you can do that. On our website, there is an index to the first 4 books. So you can look up a name and see if the name you're looking for is in one of those 4 books. And then you would know, oh, well, I need to buy, book 4C, because that's where my person appeared. We have not continued indexing the later books in that same way. But all of these books are available at the Dayton Metro Library if you wanted to come in and look them up there, or contact the library and have us look people up for you. That could be done. And at least a few of the books are at the Wright Library as well. I'm trying to get to another screen here, but I can't make this thing go away. All right. Try again. The little menu that drops down at the top is hiding the things I want to. Oh, I can drag it away. Okay, good. All right, so now I'm going to shift gears and talk a little bit about the library itself. Most of the genealogy materials that the library has are at the main library downtown. in the second floor in the local history area. So there's information here about where the library is located and how to get to the right part of the building to actually do your research. This document was actually created by one of my coworkers, so I won't take credit for it, but basically, yeah, we have staff who are familiar with both with doing genealogy in general and with what specific local history resources we have, and also with preservation techniques. If you have old documents or photographs or things that you want to make sure that you're storing and saving appropriately, we can give you advice on that as well. We have a complete set of all the city and suburban directories that are from the Dayton area. We have the cemetery records. In the Dayton History Archives, there's a large manuscript collection. For instance, we have a lot of the papers from the women's suffrage organization, which then became the League of Women Voters. We have a lot of papers from the Pattersons, but we also have things like the Lowe's brothers, who owned a paint company. We have some of their business records in our manuscript collection. We have photographs that were collected by an African-American gentleman on the West Side. Just a wide variety of things that you can find in our archives. We also have genealogy and history books, primarily focused on things east of the Mississippi. Primarily focused actually in Ohio, but also the other states east of the Mississippi, because many people came to Ohio from Pennsylvania or Virginia or Tennessee or other locations. And we also have genealogy newsletters and magazines and so forth that are available to use for research. We have newspapers on microfilm, Dayton Daily News, Dayton Journal, Dayton Herald, and many of the weekly papers. Some of the more recent weekly papers we just have in paper form rather than on microfilm, things like the Kettering Oakwood Times or the Dayton Jewish Observer, different things of that nature. We also have the German language papers that were published in Dayton, the Gdansk Blättner and the Zeitung something or other. I don't speak German, so pardon my pronunciation there. And we also have some of the early local government records that had been put on microfilm. These would be records that are either at the county archives or have been transferred to the archives at Wright State. But because they were microfilmed, we have copies of them available at the library. So some early naturalization papers and marriage records and that kind of thing. So that in some cases, a patron could just come to the library as a one-stop and do everything as opposed to having to travel around to each of those different locations. Databases, we have Ancestry Library Edition, Heritage Quest, African American Heritage, Fold 3. Those are kind of typical things that a lot of libraries have. We also have Dayton Daily News from 1898 to 1922. That is a full text, picture of the page. So you see all of the ads and everything else from that time period. And then we also have Dayton Daily News from 1990 to present. That is the articles only, so it does not include things like obituaries and classified ads and that kind of thing. And then we have a database that we have created of index to obituaries and other genealogical facts that were in the newspaper or in certain of the books that we have. At this point, there are over 600,000 entries in that database, and there are more being added daily. So that you can't get to the actual records from that database, but it at least tells you if you're looking for this person, this is for instance, if it was an obituary, it tells you the day it was in the paper and what page number it was on, which certainly speeds your time when you're looking for it. We also have various methods to reproduce the materials you find at the library. Most of the genealogy and history materials cannot be checked out there for reference only. We do have a few genealogy books that can circulate, but those are mostly the how to do it kind of books, the genealogy for dummies and the how to use Ancestry and that kind of thing. Or in some cases, if we have 12 copies of an early history of Montgomery County, then we might make one of them be a circulating copy. So you can photocopy things at the library. You can also fax things. Faxing is $1 a page, so most people don't choose to do that. You can also scan things to a USB drive or email it to yourself or to anyone else. And the scanning to a drive or email are free services. The photocopy or printing would be 10 cents a page. So we recommend that you either bring a USB drive or a camera or cell phone to take pictures of things that you might want. And then also, if you think there might be things that you might need to make copies of, go ahead and bring some coins to pay for those. The machines will take up to $5, but if you put in a $5 bill for a 10-cent item, you're going to get all your change back in quarters. So, and then,
Lori,
yes.
so we had a question about the Dayton Daily News, the fact that there's that large gap between 1922 and 1990. I'm assuming that's because they just haven't been digitized, so they're not available?
No, the 1922 date, prior to that, is out of copyright.
Gotcha.
After that, they have been digitized, but they are only available through newspapers.com if you pay the most expensive subscription price, not the version of newspapers that's available as part of Ancestry. And then after 1990, the current owners of the paper started putting the full text of the articles online. So that's why those are available. I would assume that as the copyright date where things fall out of copyright continues to move forward, that at some point more of those older ones will be added to that original database, but there's not really any way to know. That would be up to the owners of the database whether they want to do that or not. We do have all of the papers at the library, but the databases itself does have a gap.
Is there any kind of index for those?
Well,
dates?
the Obituary Index will help with if you're looking for an obituary. Right. If you're looking for, an article about your son's Little League game, then no, you just need to know the basic time period you're looking for and then just sit and scroll through the microfilm reels until you find it or go dizzy.
Sounds like a good time. Thanks.
Yes. Okay, and then there are also a lot of meeting room spaces at the Dayton libraries. So our chapter meets there, and there are also other groups that meet there, and also some small study rooms that groups of 2 to 6 people can use to collaborate. And then I've put the email for if you wanted us to do research for you at the library, and you just wanted to reach out to the library in general instead of me personally, you would use the history at Dayton Metro Library to send that request. However, the COVID update, which is here on the bottom of the page, says, first off, the Ancestry Library Edition, Ancestry has generously made that available from home use as well during COVID because so many libraries were closed. They keep extending the date of how long that free access is going to go. As of now, I think it's through the end of August, but every time it grows close to the end of a month, they've extended it again. So whether they will continue to do so or not, I do not know. But for now, if you have a library card, you can access it from home rather than having to come into the library. Once it's no longer available from home, it is available at all the branches of the Dayton Metro Library, not just downtown. So if you happen to live close to the Kettering branch, you could go in there and use Ancestry as well. It's just that the staff there might not be as able to provide as much assistance with how to use it as the people downtown could. Also, due to COVID, none of the meeting room spaces are available. And if you want to use items that are in the Dayton room, which are the local history materials, the archives, and the city directories, you need to actually make an appointment to use those items because the Dayton room is a small space and we don't want to have too many people in there at a time. So you need to either email or call and set up an appointment if you want to come in and use any of those materials. This is a publication that was put together kind of jointly between the Genealogy Society and the library. And this version that I have shared with you is from, doesn't have a date. But we always caution people, the information that's on here was accurate at the time it was put together, but, and especially now, hours may have changed, and in some cases, locations might even change. But it basically just goes through a number of places in the county that have records and gives you the name of the location, their address, phone number, website, and hours, and then also specifies what kinds of things are available at that location. So we've already talked about the kinds of things that are available at the library. The Montgomery County Vital Statistics Bureau, which is on the first floor of the Ribble building, has birth and death records from 1909 to present, but you have to know the person's exact name and date of birth or death to get the record from them. And they will charge you $20-something for a certified copy. Also on the sixth floor of the Ribble building is the Record Center where Tina Ratcliffe works, and they have a lot of the older records. So they have birth and death records prior to 1908. They also have old marriage records, deeds, wills, and various other court records. The Montgomery County Courts building over on Perry Street is where you'll find probate records and marriage records and wills, and some other court records as well. The County Administration Building, which is the real tall building that's across the street from Sinclair, has the deed records in the recorder's office and the tax records in the auditor's office. So if you're trying to track someone's land ownership, those would be the places to go for those original records. Wright State University is referred to as a regional archive. So when local governments started running out of room to store all of their old stuff, and this was back in the 70s or 80s probably, that certain local governments started saying, well, nobody's going to need to see these, land records from 1842. We might as well just throw them away. Well, of course, they are government records and they can't be thrown away. So the State Historical Society set up this system of regional archives and assigned each archive to cover certain counties. And all of the county and city governments within that region were instructed that if they had old records that they no longer had room to store, they were supposed to send them to the regional archive so that they could be stored there instead. And in many cases, they sent them to the archives, and then at Wright State, they actually made microfilm copies of them and sent the microfilm back to the original source so that they did still have a record of the old stuff that they had given away. So there's a lot of local government records there. They also, people donate various collections of archival material. There's a huge Wright Brothers collection, a lot of other genealogical material and family history material, information on various businesses and fraternal organizations and churches and things like that. The next three are locations of the Mormon churches that have libraries, which is a way to access the huge holdings of the Mormon church, either through computers that are there or through microfilm that they have requested from Salt Lake City. And so those are listed there as a resource. A lot of that stuff is now available online as well at familysearch.org. And then last is us. But this is an old document because they have our old website listed there instead of the current one. So that very last line on the bottom you can ignore. And then the last thing I had included here was just some people, when you start doing your genealogy, most people are doing it on a piece of paper. The paper version of a pedigree chart and a family group sheet, and they're tracking the information. And at some point you start realizing that you need to share it with other people. So there are various software programs that you can get that you can organize your own personal materials on your computer in the same format that you would be doing them on those pages. But then there are also some websites where you can upload your family tree information to these websites, and then other people can also see it. And if they have a common ancestor with you, they can get in touch with you and you can share information. So a few of them are listed here. And again, this was a document created by my coworker. So Ancestry is a website that normally you have to pay to be a member of. You can host a family tree there for free, but you can't necessarily make changes to it, and people can't get in touch with you in the same way if you've done it through the free upload. You have to actually pay for a membership for the communication tools to all work properly. And if you do put your family tree there, you will be inundated with emails from Ancestry urging you to take out a subscription, probably more than one a month. Also, when you put it on Ancestry, they own it. It's not your family tree anymore, it's their family tree. So if you decide that you can't afford to keep maintaining your membership, your subscription, your tree's still out there on Ancestry and you have no control over it at that point. So that's something to keep in mind. Family Search is the other website that I mentioned that is the Mormon Church. Everything there is free. It's part of their religion that they need to research their ancestors so that they can be joined with them in heaven. And so in an effort to make it easier for their members to do that, they started sending groups of people around the world with the big cameras to microfilm records so that people could do their research at their local church instead of having to travel to these places where their ancestors might have lived. So there are tons of records on familysearch.org, some of which have been indexed, some of which have been filmed but not indexed. Some of the films have been digitized. So it's kind of a work in progress as far as how you find things, but also people are allowed to put their trees up on Family Search, and that's also free. Find My Past is another site where you can put up a tree. Again, you can build the tree without it costing you anything, but then to be able to use the communication tools, you do have to pay for a membership. Similarly, myheritage.com is another website with a similar setup. Some searching is free, and then you can pay more for a subscription plan. And then this last site that's listed is one that my coworker really likes because it's just a sharing spot. So when she's doing research for somebody and she's intrigued by what she's finding for the person, she'll go out to We Relate and create a page about that person and put all the details of what she found there. And then she'll send the person that she's done the research for the link to go to that page and get all the information. But then it's also out there on that website so that anybody else who might want to see it is aware of it as well. So it's constantly working and changing. And if she creates a site for, Farmer Jones, and then somebody else comes along who knows more information about Farmer Jones, they're going to add their information to what she's already created. And so it's kind of always growing. But also, that means that other people can change what you put up there, and you don't have any control over that. So, and then a couple of caveats that she has mentioned. As far as the ethics of putting genealogy online, if it's an open website, you should only post information about individuals who are deceased. People who are in your family tree who have not yet passed away, you can just put on the tree as male or female without any identifying information, no name, no dates, no places, nothing, just, that. So your grandparents would be listed on your tree with all of their info because they've passed away. And your father would be listed there because he's passed away. But your mother would just show up as a female that was married to him because she's still alive. And then you and all of your siblings would just be shown as male or female children of that couple without any identifying information. And that way it protects people's privacy. If there are some websites that are a totally closed website and only people with passwords can get into it. So if you are using one of those kind of websites, then you can go ahead and put all the details even about the people that are alive, but then only share the password to that site with your relatives that you know and trust, not just any random person who contacts you and says, I think I might be descended from your grandmother too. Don't just blindly send them the link until you've established that connection. And then if you're not ready to put things out there on the website, but you do want to start using some software programs, she's listed a few of them here: Family Tree Maker, Roots Magic, Ancestral Quest, and Legacy Family Tree. Those cost anywhere from $25 to $100 to purchase. And some of them have a limited free version that you can try out first to see if you like it before you shell out the money for the complete version. And then there's also some free software listed on a website called Cindy's List. I'm going to go back to the other thing that I did not send you yet, which was my PowerPoint, and just go through a couple other things. So genealogy societies or historical societies, most geographic areas have one or both of those societies. Some areas have many. So those societies are going to have information on their website. They're going to publish records. They're going to hold meetings, offer classes and seminars, publish newsletters with queries that people have. For instance, I'm researching my ancestor, Jonas Abrams, who lived in Montgomery County in 1840, and he had a farm near Farmersville. Does anybody have any information on him? you just put that question in the newsletter, and then other people could get in touch with you if they know anything further on that individual. And also the list of researchers like our organization had. You can also look for genealogical groups that are not geographically based, but are ethnic or religious groups. So there's a Jewish Genealogy Federation. There are German genealogy clubs. There are Polish genealogy clubs or Italian. So like the Italian one is based in New York City. Now they have people all around the country, but, and they're going to have information about Italians who lived all around the country, but those can also be good sources in addition to the geographic one that's in your region. And one of the things I often advise people to do if they're interested in taking advantage of some of the kinds of things that the societies offer is to consider joining both a society where you live and one where your ancestors are from. The reason for joining the society where you live is because that's where you can go to attend meetings and take classes and all of those things easily. But by joining one in the place where your ancestors are from and getting those newsletters and transcribed records that they have and that kind of thing, you can find out more information about your researcher. And you can also be in touch then with other members of that group who do live in that geographic area who might be willing to go look up a record for you or go out to a cemetery and take a picture of a tombstone for you so that you don't have to travel there and do it yourself. Genealogists are usually very sharing people, and because we all rely so much on the records that other people have compiled and shared, it's considered a nice way to pay things forward to help others when you can. And then as far as libraries and archives, you want to find out what library or archive has records for the areas that you're researching. I talked about the regional archives that things have been moved out to. And some of the kinds of things you're going to find in those libraries and archives are historical newspapers, records from local businesses, churches, organizations, schools, that kind of thing. And I included the link for WorldCat, which is a place, it's kind of a worldwide card catalog for libraries. So if there's a particular book you're looking for, you can look on WorldCat and find out what libraries own that book. But you can also use WorldCat just to locate libraries. Just type in a zip code of a particular location and it'll come up with a list of the libraries in that area. And then you could get in touch with them to find out what archives they might have or what they might have in their local history room, that kind of thing. Cindy's list, which was mentioned on one of the other pages, Cindy Engel started this list decades ago of just a way to provide links to other organizations and other websites that had to do with genealogy. So there are different categories that the links are organized under. So you might look under the category of societies and groups or under the category of libraries, archives, and museums if you're looking for one of those kind of places. Or you can look at a specific state or country and then look at the subcategory of those kind of groups. There are also categories for ethnic groups, religions, occupations, that kind of thing. I don't know how many thousands of different links are on Cindy's list. They aren't always 100% current because different groups, change their website from time to time and so forth. But if you find something on Cindy's list and the link doesn't work, usually if you just type the name of that organization into Google, it'll take you to their current site. And then it's kind of a courtesy to let Cindy's list know that the link needs to be updated as well. And then I just included links to a few other websites. I included Ancestry and Family Search on there, which we already talked about. Find a Grave is a website that has a lot of pictures of tombstones from cemeteries all around the country. RootsWeb and US GenWeb are both websites, again, that have links to a lot of different society and library websites. And they, again, are divided into categories and also geographically. So those can all be useful places to go look for things. I think I will shut up at this point and answer any questions that people have.
Thank you, Lori. That was wonderful. Does anyone have a question or comment? Lori.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were asking me something.
Oh, no. I'm just, if there is anybody who has a comment. So I do see that Anita put in the chat that she was wondering why her family's info showed up on Family Search. She had a little bit of concern with that. I'm assuming someone did some research and posted it there. I don't know, Anita, if you want to add any more details to that.
Well, I think Lori answered it because she said that people were going around and kind of collecting pictures of people's records. So that's kind of what I got from what Lori said.
Yes, so there are two parts to Family Search and Ancestry both. One part is the records themselves, and those can include anybody. And then the second part are the family trees that people have put up there. So the records themselves, if they walked into Charlottesville, North Carolina, and I don't even know if that's a place, and courthouse and copied all of the marriage records from there, then if your ancestor lived there and got married there, they're going to be in those records. But again, because the people who post trees on there don't have to be Mormons either. They can be anyone who's interested in genealogy. So you could have a 15th cousin, you know, that you share a common ancestor with 200 years ago, who was also doing genealogy research and put information up there that you might connect with some of the names that are in their family tree and recognize them as being your own ancestors as well. So.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Hold on, Becky, you have to unmute.
Yeah, down at the bottom, you click on them. There you go.
There you go.
Am I okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, Lori, thank you very much. Similar question. When I've looked at Family Search, and I filled in a few things with my family tree, but when I go back, it looks like the same question that Anita asked about it, similar to it. Sometimes it's really added on. I mean, people I've never found, and I don't. Does anybody at Family Search do that? Do any researchers fill in after I've put some things in, or are all these coming from other people who are doing similar research on the same families?
The trees that are at Family Search are considered a shared tree.
Okay.
So you can put stuff there. Somebody else who's also researching your same family can go in and change what you put and put what they think is the accurate information. Also, people who work at Family Search will sometimes put in, you know, for instance, if you put two people were married, but you didn't have their specific marriage information, and Family Search has just digitized and indexed the marriage records for that place, somebody from Family Search might attach that record to those people because they found that connection. So things will change all the time on Family Search. And just because somebody else changed it doesn't mean that they knew any more about it than you did. Sometimes they know less than you did. So,
great. Yeah, well, okay, but I can pretty much trust the people who are working for Family Search if they found records that information would be accurate?
They refer to most of the websites refer to things like that as hints. So if there's a person named David Montgomery that lived in and I just choose your name because you showed up there on my screen, David, who lived in Dayton, Ohio in 1892, and he's on your tree, and they came across a record for David Montgomery that lived in Dayton in 1892, they're going to assume that that's the same person. But if there were a lot of Montgomerys in town, they could be cousins or they might not be related at all. So just because they put something out there doesn't necessarily make it a fact.
Okay. I think that's the confusing part, and it happens on Ancestry as well when I look at family trees. And I've been told by my neighbor who started me on this and is an amateur genealogist, actually very good, that the only way to get accurate information is to find sources, because so many family trees just have names, no sources, and you can't go with that at all. So I know that's a general rule, but just wanted to.
That's my rule as well. I don't take anything as gospel until I have found the original record myself.
Right.
And sometimes not even then. Because, for instance, my grandmother's birth certificate has her date of birth wrong.
Yeah.
Sometimes people lied intentionally. You know, somebody's records for when they joined the army because they wanted to go fight in the Civil War. They might have lied about how old they were so that they could go. People lied on the census when the census taker came around. It's amazing how many women only aged 7 or 8 years between each 10-year census.
I've seen that, right.
So people can deliberately create records that are wrong, or people can make an assumption that a particular record belongs to an individual when it does not. So I don't take anything as gospel unless I found the original record, and usually unless I've corroborated the fact from 2 or 3 different records. What I use the family trees that are out there for is to give me hints. If I'm stuck, I know this family moved to Dayton in 1852, but I don't know where they came from. I'll look and see if somebody else created a family tree for that family that says they came from Westmoreland, Pennsylvania. And then I will go look at the records for Westmoreland, Pennsylvania and see if I can find them myself.
Okay, great idea. Okay.
Heidi, I know you have some experience with family search. Do you have anything to add?
Yes, that's the only reason I raised my hand. I just wanted to tell the folks, and thank you, by the way, for doing this tonight. I have lived in Montgomery County I guess it was Greene County once, but I've lived in this area 3 different times, and I've never been a member of the Genealogical Society, and you got me excited. I want to join. But my name is Heidi, and I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so I use those resources all the time. And I've been doing family search during this whole quarantine and teaching other people how to do it virtually. I have somebody in North Carolina I've been teaching a lot of people here locally, both members and non-members of my church, and you can use a lot of the stuff on family search to attach the original records, like she was saying, so that you can trust and you can say, oh yes, this is a record, this is a source. I have confidence that this is the same person that I'm seeing on Ancestry because, you know, it's the same record. And so even though they're separate databases, you can see a lot of wonderful information, and I use both databases all the time. So I just wanted to just let you know, if there's anybody that needs particular help with family search, I use that every day.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
Maybe you can do a presentation for us at some point.
One other nice thing on family search that I forgot to mention is there's a huge area of it that is instructional on how to do genealogy research. So if you're looking at a certain kind of records that you've never looked at before, say you discovered that one of your ancestors, you know, belonged to the Lutheran Church, you can look on this section about churches and see specifically what kind of research it's possible to do on the Lutheran Church and where those records are kept and that kind of thing. Or if you find out that you had an ancestor that lived in Wisconsin and you've never done any Wisconsin research, you can go to that section and learn about what records are available in Wisconsin and where to find them and that kind of thing. So the it's called a wiki section of Family Search is like the third area. So there's the records, there's the family trees, and then there's the wiki. And the wiki itself can be very helpful in learning how to do things and figuring it all out.
Great.
Great. All right. Does anyone else have any questions or maybe some comments about the content of the presentation?
Hey, Brian,
Yes.
can I ask one more question? I don't want to hog the show.
No one else is asking, so go ahead.
Okay, this is another question for Lori. I know you said that Montgomery County has records for information east of the Mississippi. Would that include any information about birth records from Washington, D.C.?
Probably not to that specificity. Most of the books that we have that are not specifically Ohio related, probably at least half of the books that the library has that are not related to Ohio are things that people have donated.
Okay.
So it's not like we would necessarily have a book on birth records in Washington, D.C., but there would be books of some sort about Washington, D.C. that might tell you where those records are located or how to find them.
Okay, that's great. That was it. Yeah, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everyone. Is it okay if I talk?
Sure, jump in.
Okay. Sorry, I had to step away for a moment. I have kids. And anyhow, I have my mame, my grandmother. She had a rather large family, and I'm really having a difficulty figuring out when I find, I use Family Search, when I find different documentations, it seems like she has taken on the identity of a sibling that was deceased at times, or I don't have, it's really confusing. Like, how do you know what is real and what's not? When you have an abundance of information, that makes no sense.
That is difficult. And unfortunately, depending on how long ago you're talking about, oftentimes when somebody was deceased, the widower, for instance, would marry the deceased wife's sister.
Yeah.
And she would continue raising the kids that the original couple had and then have some more kids of her own. So sometimes those things that look like a confused identity, it is actually the same person just serving in different roles. But again, as much as possible, going back to original records, and as much as possible, trying to corroborate the information from more than one source. So for instance, if you find birth records in a particular place that list this particular couple as the parents of these children, and these are at the courthouse, try and also, if you can, figure out what church that couple attended and see if the church records also exist of the baptisms for those same children, because the church records may actually be organized by family, and then that could help you figure out what other children belong to that same family and what other children don't. Or you could get information from a census record and then from a will that mentions, that this person is leaving things to his son and his grandson. And so you get the names of those people and their relationships from this other source.
It's funny you say that as well, because in addition to the confusion, I know when they came here, they had 2 additional children that were not their own, I believe. And when I try to trace that back, because they came from Canada, I went to the specific Canadian websites, and unfortunately, a lot of the documentation is in French. So who would I go about? Like, is this an instance where I would need to hire somebody who speaks French to sift through them? Because their last name seems to be a very common name.
Depending on how the websites are set up, if it's handwritten stuff, this won't work. But if it's things that are typed onto a website, Google Translate, that is a pretty decent job of translating it for you. It's not going to have all the syntax right and, read like a normal sentence. But you just type the address of the website into the box in Google Translate and say, this website's in French and I want to see it in English. And then you click on that and it'll bring the same website up in English instead. But then
Perhaps it will help me with if I find some more sites, but unfortunately, I feel like I've lost them because of their last name being so common. And then the only hits that I've had were handwritten documentation. So,
right. I mean, you might look for records about, when they crossed the border, when they came into the United States.
that's what I was trying to find because they did not.
And also trying to look for church records in Canada would be another good source.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, it's getting towards, we're past an hour, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But unless there are any more questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
You lost your trees outside, Brian. Now you
I
have a dog.
know. It's Zoom. It drops my background every once in a while. So just a reminder that we'll meet again September 9th at 6:30. So that's the second Wednesday of the month. And it will be just, that informal meeting, and we'll be able to share stories and ask questions of each other and talk about what we're doing. And then again, for the October meeting, Tina Radcliffe of the Records Center will be here to talk about those resources, which I'm very much looking forward to. I did want to let you guys know, since genealogy and history kind of are related, that right now at the library we have an exhibit going on. It's actually part of the Far Hills Speaker Series, which is a collaboration between the library and the Oakwood Historical Society. And the exhibit and lecture that's going to be held on August 23rd at 2 o'clock is The Fall of the American Dressmaker. And our presenter, Angela Reichelderfer, actually sewed these reproduction dresses that we have on exhibit at the library. And they're pretty neat. So if you get a chance to stop in and see those, they are worth the visit. There are only 6 of them, but they are really cool. And again, she's going to do a presentation on the Fall of the American Dressmaker on August 23rd at 2 p.m. And that will be a virtual meeting, and you can register through our website. Just go to our web calendar and go to the 23rd for that event. Lori, I want to thank you so much. This was wonderful, a whole lot of information. And I think that we're probably all a little bit more excited about going out and doing some work and finding out what we can, especially I think I'm interested also in seeing what the chapter offers, and maybe go ahead and join and seeing what I can learn that way too. So I really appreciate everything that you've talked about.
Thank you.